This is the ROG Strix XG27AQDMG, and it's a 26.5-inch OLED gaming monitor. 2024 is the year of the OLED, and I've said this so many times that this is kind of what we're seeing with the trend. You name it, there's a company out there making an OLED monitor. One thing that's been missing from all of these new OLED monitors though is that they're kind of not really that affordable. Is this new ROG Strix OLED worth your hard-earned money though? Let's find out.
This video is brought to you by VIPSCDKey.com. Have you ever installed Windows 11 only to see the watermark of death? You don't need to fork out a couple of $100s for a key. You can grab one from today's video sponsor, from VIPSCDKey.com for 1/10 of the price. You can use our code GEAR to get 30% off for this month only. How good is that? That takes that already cheap Windows 11 key and makes it even cheaper. It's easy as placing your order. Bingo bango. You've got your new key on your orders page. You chuck that key into the activation screen and you're good to go. No more watermark of death. Use code GEAR to get 30% off for this month only. Link in the description. On with the video, back to you, Nick.
First of all, the price. Usually I'd leave this to a lot later in the video, but here it is, ready? $699 US. That's it. As for the Aussie pricing, I'm not sure what it is yet. Doing some quick currency conversion, I'll say it's between 1,000 and 1,100 Aussie dollars. Already with that pricing alone, it makes this ROG Strix panel a lot cheaper than many other panels in this segment. But I'll come back to that a bit later. I've been using this panel for about 6 weeks to give it a proper go, and I found some pretty interesting things you guys might find interesting too. As far as specs go with the XG27AQDMG, it features a 26.5-inch 2560 by 1440 WOLED panel with a refresh rate of 240 Hz with a peak brightness as reported by Windows at being around 800 nits. It's got a zero bezel design with a glossy screen surface. That's pretty standard with OLEDs. And the one thing of note here is that the refresh rate is a little bit lower than other OLEDs that we've seen in this size in this market segment. And this is going to be the trend, but we'll come back to that a bit later. The XG27AQDMG has a response time of 0.03 milliseconds. It's fully G-Sync and FreeSync compatible, and I use this with G-Sync without any issues. The XG27AQDMG is a 10-bit panel, so it doesn't use FRC, it's just straight up 10-bit. It supports 135% of the sRGB color space and 99% of the DCI-P3 color space. The XG27AQDMG has a 178-degree wide viewing angle with a 1.5 million to 1 contrast ratio. This panel also features HDR, which is standard for OLED panels because of the way the technology works. The XG27AQDMG has a standard 100mm VESA mounting solution. However, there is a mount replacement that ships with it in the box, so you need to use this if you want to VESA mount it. If you're looking at mounting this panel on any existing compatible monitor arm solution, it should work fine, provided you use the included mounting solution. It doesn't have the holes on the back of the panel. That's just to save some space. The included stand is fully height, tilt, swivel, and rotation adjustable. Something I noticed that was kind of cool is there's a slit cut out in the bottom of the stand itself and you can hold your phone in it. I don't know, it's pretty weird, but to be honest, I find it kind of useful, you know. It is weird, usually I don't care, but you know, it's something new. As far as connectivity, this is where it gets a little bit different. It features 2 HDMI 2.0 ports, not 2.1, a single DisplayPort 1.4 port with display stream compression, a headphone output, as well as a USB Type-B uplink port and 2 USB Type-A 3.2 Gen 1 ports. The build quality of the XG27AQDMG is excellent. It is very premium, and especially with these OLEDs, you're not going to have any issues with it. But if I have to make one comment with OLED panels, I just don't like that they're so thin, and I feel like I'm going to accidentally snap all of these OLED panels in half, but that's more of a me thing than you thing, right? As for the aesthetics, it's typical ROG. It's super gamery. It's got this big ROG RGB logo on the back of the monitor. It's got this ROG logo on the front lip of the monitor. Look, maybe it's your cup of tea, but it's not my cup of tea. As for the ROG logo on the back of the panel, it's not, why? Just don't do that. You can't see it. It's not bias lighting. It looks cool if it's like on a show floor where you can see it, but at home or whatever, just don't have it unless it's bias lighting. However, one thing I did find with this panel that was interesting with the design is there's a tripod mounting thread on top of the stand. So if you've got like a webcam or anything that uses that standard size bolt, I can't remember what the measurement is right now, you can mount that directly to the top of the panel. If you have like a big Blackmagic camera you want to mount up there, you can do that too. The XG27AQDMG has a little nub style joystick on the back edge of the screen, but it's underneath that ROG logo in the center, and the menu system is very easy to understand, and ROG and ASUS have one of the better menu systems when it comes to configuring your monitors, but you don't need to use it because it's got full software support provided you're using Windows. It uses the ASUS Display Widget Center software. It's perfectly usable, but it just means you have to install another program on your PC to configure it in the way that you want. However, most of that can be done with the menus anyway. The biggest thing about OLEDs is always the lifespan and things that help to extend lifespans of these OLED panels. Straight off the bat, the XG27AQDMG has a 3-year warranty. However, it also has this custom heatsink inside of it to help cool the panel down because OLED panels do get hot. It's not something that you really have to think about with other monitors, but they do get warm. It's got some exhaust vents on the top to help push all that air out of the top of the panel, but it's passive, so there's no fans. The whole system is completely silent. Some other OLEDs have fans in them, so they can get noisy. There's also a little bit of software trickery going on here to help with the longevity. ASUS OLED Care has a pixel cleaning reminder and a pixel cleaning function that takes about 6 minutes to help prevent that burn-in. You just go into the menu, it's like, hey, you can't do anything with this panel for 6 minutes, and then it does its thing. Whether or not it's gonna work in the long run, it's hard to say because, you know, I haven't had it for like 2 years. The out-of-the-box calibration is really nice for a gaming monitor. I didn't need to adjust many things in the settings on the panel other than reducing the overall brightness. Now I say this with a lot of monitors as well. Typically with OLED panels, I would say the best viewing experience is at 100% brightness. And it's a bit of a must. You need to experience it, but because of how I use monitors for extended periods of time in darker rooms, the brightness hurts my eyes, especially with OLEDs, so I tend to drop it to about 20% for extended use. That's the other thing though, especially with OLED panels, they all typically support HDR and they don't allow you to adjust the brightness when in HDR mode, but the XG27AQDMG allows you to toggle a setting in the menu that kind of overrides that to give you the option to change the brightness, if that makes sense. Something that I would use because I do like playing in HDR, but sometimes it's a little bit too much. For gaming, you know how this goes already. The XG27AQDMG is nice. To answer the question as well, does it work on consoles? Guys, of course, it's 2024. It's gonna work on your console. If you don't know though, I'm a PC gamer, so I didn't use this with the console. I'm a sweaty COD player, but at the moment, I'm on a bit of a sweaty COD player hiatus. I just need a bit of a break, but I have spent quite a bit of time playing COD on this, if that makes sense, because 6 weeks, it's a long time. After using an array of other OLED panels, all the experiences from these OLED panels start to blend into a single collective experience. OLED panels for this type of gaming are next level. That's the truth. The colors are excellent, the HDR experience is on point, and it's the same experience you're gonna find with most other OLED panels. That's the whole point of the technology. It's really hard to mess this up. Although, there is something I have to mention with this panel. I used this quite a bit before Computex this year, and we were about to release a review on this, but we were told that the firmware was a little bit wacky. Now, after using the new firmware for quite some time, the one thing I noticed was they dropped the saturation with the new firmware and they've kind of like pulled it back. And I think changing things like that make it for a better experience. I hope this all makes sense to you guys. To be honest as well, like I said, I've used quite a few OLED panels now, and you generally start to notice a trend. They're all good. They all look good. They all feel good to use. And it's kind of at the point now where they're all so good that they're just better than other display technologies. But now we're at the point, because we're in like this 3rd generation of OLEDs, there's so many different options that now it's like other monitors. You're choosing what specs you want and what things you don't need. So there's not like one solution and one size fits all. And that's kind of where ASUS is coming into the market with this thing. We've seen other 27-inch-ish OLED panels at 360 Hz, but having a display at 240 Hz at a lower price can be a bit more interesting and more exciting and more accessible. There's other things that they've omitted from the XG27AQDMG as well to make it a bit cheaper. USB-C is not there. With that, you lose things like PD charging for your devices, you lose extra USB inputs for other PCs or any other device that you want to use, so that means there's no KVM feature. Basically, you're stripping back all of the things that we've seen introduced over the last 3 years with all these panels, and they're kind of focusing on a single thing that makes a monitor good in the first place, and the monitor, right? As well as that, the panel technology, the response time, the refresh rate. While it can be great to cut costs in some places, it can be a bit of a sticking point for some people who are accustomed to all of these new features like KVMs and whatnot, but you know, we haven't had them that long, so do you really need it for a monitor like this? With saying all that, that kind of leads me into who the XG27AQDMG is for. It's for someone who wants to game on a gaming PC without any of the fluff. The XG27AQDMG is a no frills, all thrills approach to OLED gaming monitors. The fact that it uses WOLED or WOLED means you're not getting the same brightness levels. You're just not. You're not getting the same text clarity as something like a QD OLED. You're not getting the same wideness in color gamut with something that you'd find with a QD OLED. However, don't let any of that fool you because OLEDs are a bit of a strange beast. Ultimately, especially with OLEDs, it comes down to personal preference. The thing is with WOLED versus QD OLED, most of the differences that you see are things that are different on paper. And to be honest, if you put two of them next to each other with an average person who hasn't trained their eyes to see this kind of thing, you're just not going to notice the difference between QD OLED and WOLED. As well as that, WOLEDs are cheaper to produce, so that is reflected in the pricing for the XG27AQDMG. It just makes sense for them to do it, especially if they're trying to make this thing cheaper. Now, after using this for as long as I have, if I really sit down and think about what I don't like about the XG27AQDMG, I don't really have anything that I can say other than that stupid ROG logo on the front. It's not my jam. It's actually kind of distracting, but other than that, I'd say that the XG27AQDMG is a solid choice for anyone who wants to dip their toes in the OLED pool. The bonus here is it's a lot cheaper than any other options like the Aorus FO27Q3 or the MSI 271URX. But again, you're getting a lower refresh rate and it's WOLED, not QD OLED. Ultimately, it's a good panel. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. And I think for the price, it makes it more appealing to someone who wants a really impressive 1440p gaming experience, but doesn't want to spend the price premium to have the privilege of having an OLED panel. I hope this is all making sense. But let us know what you think of the ROG Strix XG27AQDMG. I think it's good that ASUS is adding some Strix products into their monitor lineup because it does make things cheaper, especially like Strix is meant to be their cheaper gaming line. But also $699 USD is pretty on the money for an OLED with this spec and this feature set. I think it's not too terrible, and I know people are going to make the comment, oh, RMA, blah, blah, like, okay, we've heard it all. Now, I just want to add that the way that we do monitor videos here, I just like to make it easy for you guys to digest because maybe some of the technical stuff doesn't make sense to you. I know we got a little bit more technical than usual here, but I leave decisions into your hands. If you want to spend money on a monitor and you want to spend $699 US on an OLED, go right ahead. But also, I'm not going to tell you not to spend your money on whatever you want, because here's one thing I noticed with our monitor content. People will come to the monitor videos after they've already bought it for confirmation. They want to know that they made the right decision. Anyways, I don't know if any of that made sense. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. If you liked it, subscribe. If you didn't, whatever. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. You know the name. You peek, we seek, and I'm out. I'm going to go play some more COD on this thing. This thing is really good. Good value. It's really not terrible. And yeah, your boy. He's back. Wait, I didn't go anywhere.